everyone, it's Holly and I'm here with a book memories video. I don't know when the last time I did one of these was. Probably years ago. It is where I talk about a book or books that have like some sort of relation to each other that have had a huge impact on me at a given time in my life. Usually in my childhood. I think all of them were when I was like, I would say a child, a kid. A couple were were college reads. Today I wanted to talk about Anne Frank's diary, which I have not read in like at least 15 years. It's something that I wanted to talk about because, like I said, the whole point of this series of videos is to talk about books that had a huge impact on me. And Anne Frank's diary definitely had a huge impact on me. So I first read it in like 3rd or 4th grade. I have no idea how I was exposed to it. I assume I just came across it in the library because I don't remember it ever being something I was given in my elementary school like library or any of my English classes. I don't know why my mom would have been like, you should read this book. She also didn't do that very often. Like she would read to me, but she didn't particularly like recommend books to me. It was more of like a, here's the library, find what you want kind of a situation. And so I would just like live my best life at the library. The library was my favorite place. I'm pretty sure when I picked it up, I did not know it was nonfiction. I may not even known it was nonfiction the first time I read it, but I went on to read it countless times. I would constantly get it from the library. Also, I did have to read it in 8th grade, I think. I think technically we read like the play version of it, but I did have to read it in school eventually. And I actually was so into it. It feels very weird to say that you were like really into something like this, that I ultimately read her other book. It's like a collection of her other writings, like short stories and stuff that she wrote that were also in her diary, but just weren't published with her actual diary. The reason that this book has had such an impact on me is, one, I read it multiple times. It obviously had a visceral impact on me that I wanted to keep reading it over and over again. I would have to go to the library and take it out again. I was probably reading it once a year for several years. And when I look back on it, the reason it was such like a formative book for me is because for me personally, it really made the Holocaust feel real. So it's something that you learn about in school, and you know that these things are bad, but I think sometimes it's really easy to look at things in the past as almost as if it's fiction because you didn't experience it or because somebody you know didn't experience it. So like, you know, your grandparents even didn't like necessarily go through this thing, so they can't even share their personal stories with you. And I think personal stories are really important for things like that. And to read about like a young girl who I would say I was like of a similar age, at least eventually, with her, to see what she went through and to read about it, and then to also know that she doesn't make it, is very startling, and it makes things feel real. In reference to the Holocaust specifically, I have only also experienced this with the film Schindler's List. My mom sat me down and had me watch it because we were going to watch it in school, and our parents had to sign off on watching it, and my mom, she was fine with me watching it, she had no problem. But she was like, I really would like you to watch it at home first. I'm not really sure why she did that. I think in retrospect it was probably the right move because most likely I would have cried and I probably would have been embarrassed about like crying at school. That's probably why she did it. But I felt the same way about that movie. Now obviously that movie, it's sort of fictional, it's based on a real person and a real situation, but again, it it reminds you this is real. I've had similar experiences of this with slave narratives. Again, they are hard to read, but I think it's important to read people writing and talking about their experiences, because these are real things. They happened to real people. They really did suffer, and that's important. Also, relatedly, it was fictionalized, but I talked about this in a previous book memories video. I know I did. It's called Somebody Know My Name, I think, in the US. It's something like that. I'll put a picture of it here. I believe it's called The Book of Negroes in other countries. I had to read that for my Canadian fiction class in college, and that had, even though it was fiction, the author took like a lot of narratives and real life stories to kind of create his fictional story. And again, you follow a woman basically from being captured in Africa and then sold into slavery, and then escaping for freedom and basically living a free life. And again, it made this real. And it's not that you don't, or at least for myself, it's not that I don't know these things happened and I don't know that they're bad, but having that emotional connection kind of helps really ground that into your mind. I think that things like Anne Frank's diary allow you that personal connection to history, to an experience, to a person, that sometimes can be lacking in dry textbooks that can make people less caring. And I think caring is a huge part of not wanting to relive these experiences and not thinking that you would do something different in these situations. Like if you were put in the situation that like a lot of Germans were, I think we would all like to think that we would stand up for what was right, but historically and statistically, the answer is we wouldn't. And so I think it's important to remember these things and to see these horrors and these atrocities, to try and not let those things happen again, if that makes sense. I am so happy I read this, especially at a young age, especially on my own. I think it had a formative, it was very formative for me. It taught me a lot. It exposed me to difficult things. I think that more stories like this should be taught in school. If we're going to teach things historical, which I think we should. I think we should teach classics and all that, but I think we should also teach newer things, and that's like a whole nother conversation. But I think we should teach more things like this, and like slave narratives and travel logs and things like that, and like things about like everyday people living through historical moments. I think that they're very important for people to read, and for kids. I'm gonna say kids, you know, school aged. I'm old now, so you're all young to me. You're all kids. But I think it's important, and it's something that can help round out a larger conversation about historical events. And I should probably reread this for sure. And I think I could. I've read other things like along this line that have given me similar feelings that I have not felt comfortable rereading because I'm just too scared about how they're going to make me feel emotionally. But I think I could reread this. We'll see. Maybe next year. But yeah, so those are that's my thoughts on Anne Frank's diary and some other things historical related. If you have any recommendations for similar books about any time in history, feel free to let me know. I would definitely be interested in reading them, because like I said, I think it's really interesting, and I love getting like everyman's context to historical events and times. And I will leave the book memories playlist in case you want to watch other book memories videos. I know I talk about The Hobbit, Harry Potter, some college books that I read, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!